Hi, I'm Tony Northrup, and for my Lightroom video training series, I'm here to talk about the print module. This is the module that you'll use to actually make prints if you're going to print them yourself at home. Now, before I go into this, I'll try to save you a little bit of time and say that I personally don't like to make my own prints at home. I prefer to send that out. Now, you can make a print with any printer, but you're going to be limited in the quality that you can get based on the paper and ink and such. So not only is the quality a little bit less than you might get from a professional service like Bayphoto or MPix, but it's gonna be more expensive for you because paper and ink for your home inkjet printer tends to be pretty expensive. It's also not going to last as long because it's not archival quality. The print itself is just ink on top of paper, and then that ink is exposed to light and the environment, and it will immediately start fading, especially if it's in any kind of sun. But even if it's on the inside of your house, it'll start to fade. Now, if you get a professionally made print, they'll put ink on paper usually, but then they'll also put a coating over it. So they're using archival ink, and the coating will help protect it from light, from fading, so it'll just last 10 or 20 or 50 years instead of sometimes like 6 months before a home printed picture starts to look really bad. Sometimes when you print it yourself and you put it in a frame too, the ink will stick to the glass and just kind of instantly get ruined, even if you're careful to let it dry. I also find that when I print at home, you make a lot of mistakes. The color won't be quite right, or the paper will get screwed up, or the printer will do something and leave like a stupid line across it. So every time I go to make a print, I end up making like 4 or 5 prints before I actually get it right. And that means all those per print costs, like all the ink cartridges that you have to replace, all that expensive photo quality paper, it all ends up adding up. So I'm not endorsing a specific place. I have no relationship with them other than I'm a customer of both Bayphoto and MPix. And I would say send your pictures there. However, there are scenarios where you might want to make prints, and Lightroom can help you do that. Even in scenarios where you might want to make a complex print package, for example, one big 8x10 and then a bunch of little wallet-sized pictures, you could do that. So you could actually print things on location if you were making portraits at a party or taking seniors or school photos and needed to print them instantly. Those are options for you. So let's dig into the print module. So I'm in the library view now and I've selected some photos. I'll jump over to the print module. And you can, just to orient yourself, you see that they have rulers on the top and side to kind of show you how big the print is actually going to be. You can see right now it's assuming I'm using a standard 8.5 by 11 page, and that the printer requires a little bit of a margin, like it looks like 1/8 of an inch. And otherwise it's made the picture just as big as possible. On the layout style over here, you'll see that I have single image / contact sheet selected. You can also choose between picture package or custom package. But before you get too far into the layout styles, I'm going to suggest you look over at the template browsers. This is the quickest way to select different styles for printing. So for example, other than just printing one picture as big as you could select a 4x6 print. But why would you print one 4x6 picture on a page and waste the rest of the paper when, for example, you could print a 4x6 and a bunch of 2x3s, or a 7x5 and a couple of smaller prints? So as you can see, what the print module is doing is allowing you to get the most out of your paper. And that photo paper can actually be pretty expensive, so this can be really important. Of course, you're going to need some sort of paper cutter once you actually get it printed out to make it look decent. But nonetheless, it can be both a time saver and a money saver. So let's look through some more of these templates here. So as I scroll through some of these, you'll see that under the layout style, they're picture packages. Picture packages are going to show you one picture at a time for the entire page. So you can see this is page 1 of 4, and I can skip through all 4 pages. You can see I have 4 pictures down here. So it's going to print this one picture for the entire package. This would be useful if you just shot school photos, right? If you had an entire class and you were giving them each one 4x6 and 6 wallet-sized 2x3s, a common package for these kind of school photos. You would just select all the pictures and then it would make you a 20-page thing and you would print them out and cut them up. Kind of easy. So the picture packages work like that, where it's one picture per page. You also have the option to do custom packages. And some of the templates over here are custom packages. They're named logically, like they'll say custom 2/1. So if I select this, now it's my job to drag the pictures into it. So you can see I dragged it in there, hit Control Z to undo that. And then if I hold down the Control key, I can center his face on the page. Drag a picture of Chelsea down here. And let's take this vertical picture and we'll drag it up here. So that looks good. So this is a custom package when you can drag pictures and arrange them instead of having one picture printed over and over again. So those are the 3 different layout styles and a bit of an overview of the existing templates. Now let's move on to talk about image settings. Under image settings, you have some options like rotate to fit. Now let's go back and select a different custom setting here. Now we have 3 kind of vertical options. If I have rotate to fit turned off, I can drag that in there and you can see it left it vertical, but it cropped the picture heavily as compared to what it looks like in the thumbnail here. So now I'll turn on rotate to fit and now it went ahead and rotated it. That's the only difference. It's just going to automatically rotate it for you. Let's take a look at photo border here. Now you can see it's actually adding a bit of a border. This could be aesthetic. Maybe you actually want a white edge around it. It might also just make it easier for you to cut. It also kind of depends on your framing, because often if you buy an 8x10 frame, the opening for the print will be a little bit smaller than 8x10. That's because your print is actually going to be 8x10 and you don't want any of the edges showing, so you need your print to be a little bit bigger. But if you've composed your picture in such a way that you can't afford to crop anything off, you might want that edge to actually be a white border. So you could add a border around it. This is how you would do it. You would just select photo border here and then drag it to select just how much you want, but you don't normally need that. Inner stroke is similar to a border, but it's more aesthetic. And it allows you to select a different color. So here I'll just grab this to change the color of it. That's terribly ugly. That's how you do it, but we're not going to do that, right? We're going to turn that off. I can't even stand to look at that. The options you'll see under image settings will change depending on the layout style that you're using. So let's check out the options that we'll see for other layout styles. First, I'll go up and select the single image / contact sheet. And under image settings, you can see the options change. That's what we have for the custom package. This is what's available for the single image package. So here we see zoom to fill, which is going to crop the size of the picture a little bit to fill the space. Rotate to fit kind of does the same thing. If I turn rotate to fit on and drag this in, then we'll see that's what it does. Now let's go up here to one of these picture packages. Now if I select the 5x8 contact sheet here, there's an option here for repeat one photo per page. So if I select that, I will get a whole bunch of the same picture. If I deselect that, then the contact sheet will do what a contact sheet is intended to do, which is give you a thumbnail overview of all the different available pictures. So that's what that one option does. And for each of these, we also have the option of adding a border on it. I don't know why you'd ever want that. If we take a look at the options available when you select picture package, they'll look familiar. You have zoom to fill and rotate to fit, as well as a photo border and an inner stroke, just like you did for the custom package. Now let's go over the layout panel for the print module, which only appears if you have the single image contact sheet option selected. So I'll select that and there we go. There's our layout panel. Now this gives me some options. I can change the units, which is just for your own preference. I'm an American, so I'm pretty much stuck with inches as much as I might hate that whole system. And you can see I can adjust the margins. I don't know why you'd ever want different margins, but you might have to adjust this for your printer because printers can't necessarily print right to the edge of the page. They usually need 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 of an inch. You can kind of experiment. You can start with a really small margin and print something and see if it gets cut off. If so, you can add a little more margin to it. It's just a little safeguard in there because your printer is not perfect. You can also control the page grid, and that kind of controls how much room is between the pictures. So adjust the number of rows and columns on the page to suit your own needs. That's not a great, okay, there we go. That's a little bit better. And now if you want spaces between the cells, maybe to give yourself a little more room during cutting, you can do that. You can see the keep square option is selected here, and that makes things work a little bit better generally, unless all your pictures are horizontal. If all your pictures are horizontal, then you can go ahead and choose a more horizontal option here, an option that better uses the entire space on the page. So I can, let's see. I think I have room for another a set of rows in there? I do. So as you can see, you can kind of customize this to take advantage of all the space that you have. There we go. That's about as big as they're going to get. Again, if I click keep square, it's going to make sure that these spaces are always square, and it won't allow me to customize it. Keep square is generally better if you have mixed horizontal and vertical pictures, but if they're all vertical or all horizontal, go ahead and turn it off and save yourself some space. And now let's go over the guides panel, which only appears if you have the single image contact sheet layout style selected in the print module. So let's close that layout module. The guides just show lines around it. That might be useful for cutting, but if you don't need them, they're pretty ugly, so I'd like to turn them off. The rulers won't show up in the print, but might or might not clutter up your desktop space a little bit. The page bleed is just shading in the parts of the page that it expects you to cut with a paper cutter. The margins and gutters are these little markings that don't appear in the actual print, but basically they just mark the margins and the gutter, which is something that people in the printing industry know about. It's just the edges of the page which aren't intended to be printed on. The image cells are just boxes around the individual pictures, and the dimensions will show you the actual size of every image. Not sure why you'd ever need to know that, but if you want it, it's there and you can turn it on. Now I'd like to go over the page panel in the slideshow module. This appears no matter what layout style you're currently working with. Jumping into Lightroom, we'll close the guides panel and go right into the page here. This defines properties of the current page, stuff that kind of about the paper. So you can change the background color, which you pretty much want to leave to white, because generally white tells the printer not to put any ink down there. If, for example, you might be printing on black or some special printing configuration, you could change that. But for the most part, you're going to be leaving that color white. The identity plate allows you to put your banner there, and just like the other modules, you get a chance to pick which one you want to use. Of course, you can control the opacity and the size to fade it out a little bit. You could use this as a watermark, but there's a watermark option right there. So you also get the chance to move this around. So maybe you want to put it right here and just remind people who you are. I don't know. You don't have to use it, but it is a good way to kind of brand your business. Moving down further, you can see we have the option for render behind image. So first I'll move this in front of the images, and you can see it appears in front of them. If I do render behind, well, it's completely hidden. Here, I'll put it half over and then select render behind. Oh, that actually didn't do the trick. There we go. Put it right over the gutter, and you can see that it's now behind it. If you want it to be rendered on every image, you can see it's making a copy of it just like a watermark. Good way to stop somebody from stealing your photos. It's pretty common to do this because people will even take your contact sheet and scan it in and put it up on Facebook rather than actually paying for the prints. So if you're a professional and you're using that business model where you make your profit off of selling prints, it is important for you to watermark your pictures, and that's a good way to do it. Let's move on past the identity plate. We'll turn that back on and go into watermarking here, and I'll select the Northrup Photography watermark. You can see that's a little bit different. It's a different style of logo, and it's putting it in the bottom corner. And of course, you have the option to edit watermarks down here, but we've covered this in a separate module, so I won't go into too much detail now. We'll leave the watermark on and go ahead and configure the page options. So you can see here we have the option to turn on page numbers, which puts a page number down there. You can see it's just one. Page info, for example, printing properties, including the printer and whether or not sharpening is on, as well as crop marks. The crop marks just tell you where to take your paper cutter, just helps you line it up a little bit. A little bit below that, we have the option for the info that we're going to show beneath all of the pictures. And by default, it's the file name. But if you've set a caption, you can see a couple of these have captions. You could use that instead, or you could even put in something about the equipment that you were using. And of course, you can adjust the font size, make it nice and big or more subtle. That is mostly for your reference, but it's also good if you hand a contact sheet for a client and they're going to call you on the phone and say, hey, I'd like an 8x10 of your file named IMG2374. It's a way to uniquely identify the pictures that's more precise than saying, oh, the one where she's kind of smiling really nicely. Now, if we select a different layout style, the page options will still be here, but they might change. So I'll close a couple of these for now. And you can see some of these are familiar. The identity plate and the watermarking is still there. But some of the other options are gone, and we can add cut guides here. Cut guides or crop marks, just telling you where to cut, making the whole job a little bit more precise. And if we select the custom package, again, isolating just the page, we'll see that it basically looks exactly the same. Up next, let's talk about the print job panel in the print module. This allows you to control aspects of your actual printing, such as whether or not you're printing in draft mode. So I'll close the page panel and we'll focus on the print job. This appears for all of the different layout styles. You can see this is a contact sheet, so it's in draft mode printing. Draft mode tends to use less ink than full production mode. So unless absolutely necessary, I like to use draft mode. Sometimes I'll even make my first printing in draft mode since I tend to screw up my own print so much. But if you have confidence, turn it off, go for the full quality. Some other options down here, if you turn off draft mode, are print resolution. 240 is common, 300 is considered a little bit better, but you kind of want to match this to your own printer's capability. So look in and see what your printer is capable of and where it prints best. Might be worth experimenting a little bit because it is specific to your own printer model. The print sharpening is a nice feature, and this uses intelligent sharpening, which is different from on-screen sharpening, to make the print look better. And its default is low, and that's what I'll usually use too. Standard can be fine if you decide that you print it out and it doesn't look that great, but you probably don't want to go to the high sharpening, especially with portraiture. Might be okay with wildlife, but with portraiture, it's going to start to accentuate blemishes and flaws in the picture, and can even highlight photoshopping flaws if you've made any mistakes with the Photoshop. So err on the side of less sharpening whenever you can. It's also going to ask you the media type. This won't actually change your picture from matte to glossy because your printer probably doesn't have coding capabilities, but it will optimize the output to better match the format that you're using. So if you bought matte paper, select matte. If you bought glossy paper, select glossy. The color management should usually be left at managed by printer. Your printer has its own color management technique that is specific to your printer model, but if you have a professional grade photo printer, it might have color management profiles built in. If that's the case, you could select this and then select other and pick one of the profiles. Now, there are none here because this computer doesn't have such a printer installed, but if I select include display profiles, I can see some profiles that are meant for displaying on the monitor. You would not use these for printing. Again, you would go back and select the profile that's specific to your printer. If you do have a printer profile, it's good to add it in. It can improve the accuracy of the color in your printing. Otherwise, sometimes it takes a little bit of experimenting. So what happens when you print your photo out and it's not bright enough, or it's too bright, or it's too flat, or too contrasty? You can go in and adjust the print output without adjusting the pictures themselves. It's better to do it that way. There's the print adjustment checkbox here, and you can drag this up or down. These options aren't changing how the pictures look in Lightroom. They're just changing how Lightroom talks to the printer, and it applies equally to all pictures. So if you're printing 5 pictures and 3 of them look good and 2 of them look bad, you need to adjust those individual pictures in Lightroom. If they all look too bad, then you can go in and make a print adjustment that will apply equally to all those pictures. Now let's talk about creating picture packages. It's common for photographers to sell an 8x10 and 3 4x6s, that kind of thing. And you can create your own custom packages if none of the ones built into Lightroom work perfectly for you. They have design tools that allow you to control the layout of the pictures on the page. So let's jump into Lightroom and check it out. I'm going to select the picture package layout style up here. And you can see I had one selected from before, but maybe that's not the way I want the pictures to be laid out. You can click any of these and delete them, for example. Now, let's see, I'll grab a different picture and drop it in there. It's just something different to work with. And I can drag the corner, and be careful when you do this, because unless you hold down the Shift key, it's going to change the aspect ratio. But that might be okay, because maybe you want the pictures to be square. So as you can see, I can drag the picture up over and over again and just do different styles. When it's switching like that, it's because my mouse is scrolling. But you can see each page, because it's a big picture package, each page is just for one specific picture. Maybe we want one of these to be a panorama, so I'll stretch this one really wide. You have complete control how these look, and that's the power of a picture package. Once you've organized it the way you want it, you can go up here and do Create Saved Print. And now you're basically going to save your picture package. So we'll call it Tony's picture package because, you know, I'm pretty clever that way. And we'll just save it as a collection right here. So here we go. Shows a little print icon, so I can immediately jump back to that same picture package, and it will have the same format. You can also save the template itself by using the template browser here. Get it organized, and then click plus, and we'll call it Tony's template. Saves it under the user templates by default. So now I've saved both the set of pictures in a collection and the template, which is the layout, within the template browser. Now, of course, there's page 1 of 7. There's one page per picture selected because that's how a picture package works. And I can scroll through them here. Clicking the stop button always jumps you back to the first page. Of course, you can just drag a picture in and resize it yourself. But if you'd like to use standard size prints, like a 4x6, you can use cells to do it automatically. This is a great idea because most people do want standard size prints because they can just go to their local craft store and get a frame that perfectly fits up with the 4x6. And if you just kind of drag a picture in and resize it arbitrarily, it's not going to fit any standard frame. What are they going to do? Like get a $100 custom frame made? So using these cells is a really convenient way for your clients to be sure that you're using standard sizes. Let's jump into Lightroom and check out how cells work. Let's get rid of some of these pictures here. Just simplify this a little bit. And I'll open up the cells panel. And common wallet size picture is 2 inches by 2.5 inches. So I could click this and select a variety of different options, but they're kind of already here available for me. So just treat these like buttons. You could add a couple of 2x5s, spread them across there. And then maybe we want another 5x7. Well, it didn't fit on the page, so it went to the next page automatically. I'll hit Control-Z to undo that. And you can see it'll try to cram the pictures on in an efficient way. So let's click the new page. Now you can just kind of organize the pictures that your clients need in the most efficient way possible. So you could fit a couple of 4x6s on and then a couple of wallet size, and Lightroom is pretty smart about cramming everything on there. After you're done, you can always click Auto Layout and Lightroom will try to reorganize things based on your different selections. If you hate it, just click Clear Layout and undo it all. Now, I'm going to hit Control-Z to undo the clear layout. And we'll bring back our pretty ugly layout here, just so I can show you the Adjust Selected Cell Width. What this is doing is it's changing the height and width of the cell that I currently have selected. That's the picture. Let's delete that one and pick this little cute baby here. Select that, and then adjust the height or the width. This is exactly like just grabbing the corner here. I usually find it easier to do that, but these have the benefit of showing you the exact number of inches. So you could make that 4 by 2.82 if you wanted to. So the Adjust Selected Cell option allows you to specify the height and width of a picture, and Lightroom will automatically rotate the picture and make sure that it doesn't overlap any other pictures when you do the print. Now let's talk about creating custom packages using the print module. Now in Lightroom you have picture packages and custom packages. Picture packages are one picture per page, and the idea is that you're going to be cutting it up and giving it to the client. Picture packages are a little different. The pictures can actually overlap, and you can put multiple pictures on one page. The idea of the picture package is that you're going to be presenting that single printed page instead of cutting it up. So let's check out how to make custom packages. Jumping back into Lightroom. Now first, we can go into Lightroom templates and just pick a custom package. This custom overlap one is a good example of it. So as I pick this, I can now see, I'm going to hit Control-D to deselect all of these. I can now grab a picture and drag it in there. There we go. Now, as we talked about before, I can go into image settings and select rotate to fit. So that works a little bit better. And then drag these in. So now I have a custom package where these are kind of stacked on top of each other, and this would only be if you actually like this layout. This isn't for later printing. These are not necessarily any size that you would want to print, and even if you did cut it, you'd be cutting up this picture too. You have some options. If you select it and right-click it, for example, you can bring it forward. Usually what you'll be doing is send to back or send to front. So if I don't want this one behind it, I can send it to the front. If I want this one in the front, I'll click it and then click send to front. You can also choose to match the photo aspect ratio, and I think these are actually matched pretty well. But tell you what, I will resize this one intentionally and then right-click it and select match photo aspect ratio, just so that none of the photo is being cropped off. Just one thing left, and that's actually printing, and this is kind of the easy part, though if you're doing it at home, you might end up doing it a couple of times. Jumping back into Lightroom, you'll see a couple of buttons down here. The printer button allows you to select your printer. This will be different in Windows or Mac OS because Lightroom is just pulling up the operating system's dialog box. You can see here in Windows, it gives you a variety of different printers. Whatever you've configured your computer to connect to, you'll see those options there. You can also change the properties of the printer, which can be important. For example, you'll want to go in and set the media type, change it from plain paper to, for example, the specific type of photo paper that you might be using. There are a lot of different options here, and they're going to be different for every different printer, so it doesn't make any sense for me to go over them, but do check out your printer manual. Usually it's pretty straightforward, but make a point of browsing through those options and matching them up to the paper and the quality requirements. So I'll cancel this with my printer selected, and when you're ready to print, click print. Once again, Lightroom now talks to the operating system, so exactly how it unfolds from here depends on whether you're using Windows and Mac and the type of printer that you're using, but it should be like printing just about anything else. Thanks so much for hanging out with me and learning all about the print module. I find it really, really useful when I do my own printing. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to write me an email at tony@northrup.org, and I hope you'll check out the rest of my Lightroom video training series. Thank you.